Dr. Rahman, and welcome to Black Women's Health Podcast. This podcast has been going through a number of changes, and I now consider it to be more than a podcast. It's a platform. It's a platform for Black women promoting Black women's health, and health includes physical, financial, emotional, social well-being. I have developed three different distinct segments to this podcast. One is focusing on pregnancy, and that series is called 40 Weeks. The second is called Today's Woman, and that deals with female issues, female concerns for today's woman. And the third segment is where I get to interview women that are making a contribution or women who have overcome significant hurdles, women that have a story to tell. And one thing that I know for sure is that everyone has a story. And so this is not the big mega celebrity that I'm talking about. I'm talking about us, ordinary, everyday people who have done extraordinary things, who have overcome amazing obstacles. And I hear these stories. I started hearing these stories as a practicing OBGYN. There's a moment, it doesn't happen with every patient, but there's a moment when the two of you connect, and she then starts to share her life story, her trials, her tribulations, the anxiety, the stress, and often that's followed by tears. But I have heard some amazing stories. So I know we have the stories. I also find that often we are reluctant to tell our story. I'm not quite sure why, but there is a hesitation. And then I said, well, I have to practice what I preach. Maybe I should share some of my story with you in hopes that my story may help someone else. My story may illuminate the path for someone else. Maybe, just maybe, there's something beneficial that someone can glean from my story. And that's the reason for community. That's the reason for sharing. And I welcome your stories. So on my storytelling, I really want to take this opportunity not only to tell some stories that have occurred in my life, but to say thank you, because I have realized that there are numerous people that have helped me along the way. And these people that I have in mind probably didn't even understand the significance of what they did in the moment. And I'm certain they don't know what a positive effect they had on me in my life, and years, decades later, I still remember. So let's start with, I should tell you that I started public school in a Black school, and then I was one of those children that got bused to a white school, and this was in the name of integration. But what happened in reality is that they took the bused Black kids, and that was one class, and the white kids still had a class. So there were two separate classes, not a lot of integration going on. But so it wouldn't be so obvious, they would always take, or they often took one Black child and put that Black child in the white class. So it looked as though integration was happening. I was one of the Black children that got put in the all white class. And the rest is history, as they say. And then after that, I was accepted into a private school because they too were looking to increase the number of Blacks in their school. There was a test that I had to take. There was applications, but basically I was accepted to this private school. And I remember my mother saying to me, "You need to know you're just as good as they are." And I was shocked. I was shocked because it had never occurred to me that I may not have been. I mean, this wasn't the first time that I was going to be around white students. I had never questioned that before, but if my mother was saying it to me, maybe there was something to it. And then after a while, I could see that there wasn't, they didn't have this extra special intelligence, that they were just like me. And at that point, I remember a teacher, Mrs. Lincoln. Mrs. Lincoln paid me a compliment. And it wasn't something extraordinary. It was more like an observation where Mrs. Lincoln said something to the effect that you have a very analytical, critical mind. I took it as a positive. I took it as a positive because in reality, that was the first time I could remember anyone saying anything positive or affirming or supportive of any intellectual skill I may have had. And so when she said that, that was like a glass of cool water, refreshing, reviving. And to this day, I remember Mrs. Lincoln. Now, I have to say the private school experience was not all bad. I got exposed to wealth and privilege. And I would say white privilege because the majority of people were white. Um, and I saw how their lives were compared to how my life was. And so there was privilege. And although I wasn't necessarily the recipient of white privilege, I do think that I did receive benefits by just being in proximity of it all. I mean, because the school was interesting in that they wanted their students to be thinkers and not necessarily color inside the box. They don't necessarily have to follow the rules. We're the ones that are going to be making the rules. And so there's a whole different training process that's involved. And so I remember saying to them, I'm going to change my name. And they said, "What's your new name?" And I said, "It's Akuba X." And they said, "Okay, Akuba." And then Stephanie and I decided that we really wanted to graduate early. We were in the 10th grade and we wanted to skip the 11th grade and go directly into 12th grade. So that's what we said. And the school said, "Okay, in order to do that, you have to fulfill all of your requirements. And you would need to take 2 college English courses over the summer. And you need to earn a B or greater And if you do that, we will count that as credit. And in the start of the school year, you will be a 12th grader and you will not have to do 11th grade. So that's what Stephanie and I did. And I remember the college professor who wasn't that thrilled about having 10th graders come and participate in his English college course. And I know that because he told me. I had earned an A in his class, and he came back and he said that he wasn't happy about having us in his class. And that part was obvious. And then he said that he didn't think we would be able to handle it, but he was wrong. And I want to thank him. I don't remember his name, but to have the ability and the willingness to say, I was wrong, please accept my apology, goes a long way for the recipient. And so I thank him. I thank him for saying what he said. And so I was able to graduate um, uh, that following school year because I was now a 12th grader. And by the age of 24, by the age of 24, I was divorced, the mother of two children, both of them preschool. And at that point, I decided I want to go to medical school. And the third person that I want to thank is the medical school interviewer that day. I don't remember his name, but he was looking at an atypical student, one with a trying social situation. And he was willing to give me the benefit of the doubt and say, if you think you can, I think you can. I think you have what it takes. And that vote of confidence, that acceptance has made a world of difference in my life. And I don't remember his name, but I wish that I want to send it out into the universe and say, thank you. And sometimes we need to take a chance on that atypical student or that not quite expected presentation and give people the benefit of the doubt. And so now I get into medical school and I'm now a medical student. I'm on my surgical rotation at the VA hospital. And as a medical student, you have to go in early and you have certain responsibilities. They're like what we call the scut work. Somebody has to do it. Who are we going to get to do it? A medical student. So one of my responsibilities was to come in early in the morning and debride the foot ulcer of a diabetic patient. Now, in order to debride, you have to cut away the necrotic tissue so that there can be healing within the ulcer. And that's what I would do every morning, early in the morning. I would go into his room, and he shared a room with 3 other men, and I would proceed with the debridement, and he would proceed with being derogatory, saying negative things. I don't remember the exact words or what was exactly said, but I can tell you that it was mean-spirited, it was derogatory, it was insulting. And at that time in my life, I didn't feel as though I could speak up or speak back or say something equally nasty to him. I didn't feel as though there was someone that I could go to and report this to. I felt that I just had to take it. And so my only remedy was to do it as quickly and as efficiently as possible so I could get out of the room. And this went on for several days. And then one day I walked in and he said, I want to apologize. The other three men have heard me and they told me to stop. And then he said the strangest thing. He said, I'm really not a bad person. And he started to tell me his life story. And I want to thank those three men in the room. It was none of their business. It didn't involve them, but they saw what was happening and they put a stop to it. So sometimes, even if you're not being directly impacted, if you see something negative going on, maybe you can speak up. Maybe you can help that person. And that's what those three men did for me. So I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to those people in my life that I've never had the opportunity to circle back and say, you made a difference. Mrs. Lincoln, you made a difference in my life. That college professor, you showed me that you can have negative opinions, but when you see you're in the wrong, having what it takes to admit it and admit it to the person that was offended. I thank you for that. That medical school interviewer that looked at this woman with this divorced woman with two young children and who said, I think she can do it. I thank you. I thank you for that vote of confidence. And lastly, those three men, I wouldn't know you if I saw you in a room, but what you did for me in that moment, in that time, was huge and greatly appreciated. So those are just snippets of stories that have occurred to me that I want to share in hopes that we will be supportive of each other, that we will give someone a second chance or a third chance, and that we will speak up if we see that something is not right. And if you want to share your story, I welcome hearing your stories. It's always a privilege. It's always a privilege when someone has enough confidence and feels secure enough that they can share something that's actually very personal and sometimes something that has not been shared in the past. So please consider contacting me to share your story. I look forward to doing more of this. I look forward to some exciting, really exciting interviews coming. Little scheduling problems here, but I am looking forward to it, and I hope you stay tuned. Until the next time, continue to shine. This is Dr. Rahman. Take care.